Hello, and welcome to Foundations in Grails. I'm Mike Kelly. This video series is designed to introduce you to the Grails web application framework and get you up and running in Grails by building a simple application. In this first video, we will take a look at the architecture behind Grails and get you ready to install a Grails environment. Once we start to show actual computer screens in these videos, you'll be able to see them best by viewing them in full screen mode. Just click here on your video to switch to full screen. Also, if you have the bandwidth, change your settings to HD mode for the clearest picture. The agenda for the entire video course will first describe what Grails is and how it relates to Java, as well as the other components that make up the framework. We will also discuss who should take this course. Our first activity will be to ensure that you have a working Grails environment running in either Windows, OS X, or Linux. And finally, the majority of the course will be centered around building our first Grails application, a project tracker, which will take advantage of most of Grails' core features, such as connecting to a database, automated testing, and templates. So let's start off by talking about the Grails framework. By definition, Grails is a framework for building web applications on the Java platform. Grails is open source and is maintained by SpringSource, a subsidiary of VMware, a leader in virtualization and cloud computing architectures. It is considered to be a full-stack model view controller framework, meaning it has all the components pre-integrated into the framework. This is in comparison to an extensible framework that lets you decide on the individual components that will work together in your framework. It could be said that full-stack frameworks are less flexible than extensible frameworks, but the payoff is that with Grails you don't have to write scores of XML configuration files to glue everything together. If you prefer to have the flexibility of an extensible framework, I would recommend using struts instead. Let's see how a model view controller framework operates. In a static web page architecture, an end user enters a URL into the address bar of their browser, like www.grailsexample.net/videos/intro. The domain name directs the request to the correct web server on the internet. Everything after the domain name corresponds to a directory structure on that web server. If a specific file name is not specified in the URL, the web server will send back the default page in that directory, which is typically the index or home page. In a model view controller architecture, a dispatcher runs on the web server. The dispatcher looks for names in the URL that correspond to applications that are running. If the first parameter after the domain name matches a Grails application, the dispatcher sends the request to a controller, in this case the intro controller that is part of the videos application. Controllers control all of the logic in your web application, such as calculating values, querying the database, etc. If the controller requires information from a database, it sends the request through a data model. The data model allows you to represent a relational database as Java objects. You can query your database using simple commands that don't require you to worry about things like joins and other intricacies of SQL. The model returns the data from the database back to the controller. The controller also constructs the resulting web page by using a template called a view. In Grails, a view is made up of HTML, CSS, AJAX, and the typical tags that make up a web page. However, it can include additional tags that allow you to insert variable data that you get from the database or calculate in the controller into the page. Once the controller has the page you requested fully constructed, it sends it back through the web server and to your browser, where it renders like an ordinary web page. As I've stated earlier, Grails is a framework that runs on the Java architecture. That means that anything running a Java virtual machine can run a Grails application. Grails comes pre-packaged with the Tomcat Java application server, but you can package up your Grails application and run it on any Java application server. In addition to a JVM, we will be installing the Java language and software development kit, so we can build a Grails application as well as run it. The strength of Grails is the package of model view controller components that comes with it. The Spring framework is the core controller for Grails. Hibernate is used for building data models and communicating with your database. and Site Mesh is the templating framework used by your views. Grails itself has a scripting language that ties all these pieces together, and it is based on the popular language called Groovy. Groovy is a Java-compatible language that gives Java many modern features found in other web programming languages like Ruby. Now that we know what Grails is, you may be asking yourself if this course is for you. You can answer that by understanding what this course does and does not teach. The intent of this course is to teach you how to build dynamic web applications based on Java. I'm assuming that you have a beginner level or very little experience in programming. You do not need to already know Java or how to program. You just need a solid understanding of how to operate a computer and an open mind. Although we will be using HTML, CSS, Java, and Ajax in our application, I will not be covering these languages in any kind of detail. If you've never built web pages, you will be able to copy the code you need by duplicating what is in the video, or copying it from the sample files on the website. I'm also not going to cover advanced concepts in Java, Groovy, Grails, or database programming. So if you're an expert programmer, this course may not be for you. I would recommend looking at the training materials and forums available on the Grails website at grails.org. Finally, if you found this video from searching YouTube, I recommend you visit the Grails example website at www.grailsexample.net so you can see the entire course in sequence, as well as download the code examples and sample files. With that, let's get started. In the next video, we will get our Grails area installed on the computing environment of your choice.